Welcome back. You're watching ED Insight. There are many arguments why companies should be run by professionals, and the most important one is that professionals bring in better skills and experience. But not every group that has handed over reins to professionals been the better for it. In fact, Murugappa and Aisha have had to take control back to give their businesses the big push. Asha Gopalakrishnan tells you why owner-managers still rule the roost.
It's my time to go up high.
Changing tracks swiftly is often the key to winning a race. Who would know that better than 106-year-old Murugappa Group, which reinvented itself many times in the past 2 decades.
The Murugappa Group. Solid, driven.
First, the group restructured its businesses and inducted professional managers in 1991. That was the post-liberalization era when most family-run businesses were struggling to stay afloat and compete with global giants. And by 1999, the family was ready to pass the baton to an outsider. M.V. Subbaiah, who was then at the helm of the business, stepped down and appointed N.S. Raghavan as chairman. The family took on an advisory role. 2 years later, P.S. Pai, another professional, took over as executive chairman. But by 2006, the family struck back and Subbaiah's cousin M.A. Alagappan took over as chairman. Since then, business has been a family matter. Consultant Stanton Chase, that is helping some of the group's companies with succession planning, explains the matter.
The group has a philosophy that every alternate chairman has to be one from the family and one from outside. So whether or not the stint of a professional manager, a professional chairman was effective or not, the next incoming chairman will be from the family. So it's not that there was something which was not up to the mark, right? So there was Mr. Pai, who was ex-vice chairman of Wipro, who was the chairman of Murugappa Group, and before that there was Mr. Raghavan, who was the one of the founders of Infosys, who was the chairman. So it's alternating chairmen from family versus from outside.
But since these men have left, no outsider has come to head the family business. Another example of the family returning to day-to-day management is the Lal family of the Aisha Group. Vikram Lal, the second-generation inheritor of the company, introduced professional skills into the business by hiring an engineering professional, Subodh Bhargava, to take charge. But that transition was short-lived. 6 years later, Subodh was replaced by Vikram's son Siddharth. The outgoing CEO allegedly had differences with the family. The company denied that in most reports. Whatever the case, it's the interest of the company that really matters. And maybe the family returning to the top is for the better.
These days, company performance is determined by short-term orientation, because the stock market is driving the performance of a company. If you have a substantial number of shares, percentage of shares open in the market, the shareholders' expectations are that the share market should be moving. So therefore, the company is expecting quarter-to-quarter performance increasing. So if that doesn't happen, the management gets worried about it, share market response, the analyst response. So therefore, very often the management is asked to perform under pressure on a short-term basis.
It is not a one-way street. Once a family professionalizes, I think it is not fair to say that the family should never come back. Professionals should be flexible enough that when we are needed, we will perform. When there is a member of the family may formally occupy a particular title.
It is a big transition that needs to happen on both sides to make it work. So for an owner to finally let go the reins of a company is very, very difficult. So maybe the first time around, you don't create enough of the right environments to enable a person coming in from the outside to succeed, and that doesn't work. And in the meanwhile, maybe there is someone else from the family who has now matured, who has now grown, who is now ready to take on that role, and that person may not have been ready 5 years ago when you needed to start the process of succession.
If the owners also have the required skill sets and talent, an owner who also manages makes a very powerful combination.
There's data to back that. According to a Barclays Wealth survey of more than 2,000 companies across the world, family business models are successful because of a strong support network from family members, shared values and ethos, ability to think long-term and quick decision-making.
Research in the UK has proved that promoter-run companies are outperforming their peers on all 6 stock exchanges in Europe. So promoter-run companies have been there throughout, and they are profitable companies.
But professionals find themselves in a peculiar spot when it comes to decision-making. According to a survey by AMROC on 70 executives from 29 Indian companies, including the Aditya Birla Group, Murugappa Group, Ranbaxy, Bharti Airtel and Bajaj Auto, a majority of professionals hesitate to take decisions even if given the freedom. That's not all. They also have lower levels of passion for the job. But passion can be a tricky issue.
Owners should be a part of the business because their passion is very important for the successful running. But if you have to think of scale and you have to grow it beyond the limits of your competencies or capabilities, owners need to make sure they bring the best people to run the company.
Owners tend to take a long-term outlook on businesses and work on raising the family prestige and wealth.
My grandson, Ayaman Vikram Birla, he is very fond of sports and especially cricket. And he's only 12 years old, so we've been just letting him do whatever he wants, because I'm sure later on he will also follow the footsteps of his father, grandfather and great-grandfather.
And executives are more focused on the short-term outlook and their own professional success along with that of the company. Both are required for successful businesses. It's said that owner executives who synchronize their motivations with those of the external executives tend to optimize gains.
There are lots of other situations in Indian companies as we speak wherein an existing chief executive, for example, works very, very closely with the next generation of family owners. A good example is Hindustan Times, for example. The 2 sons and the chief executive, which is Rajiv Verma, work hand in hand.
The problem with owner executives, though, is that corporate governance can be low on the radar. So what you have is issues like the board being a rubber stamp, egos running amok, family troubles causing problems, and whimsical decision-making. It's a thin line, and not many families can strike the right balance. And that's where the need for proper succession planning comes in. A good succession plan can help families cover all areas of contention, from retirement and appointment to resolving conflicts. But Indian companies are low on succession planning. According to a report by Bain & Company, out of the 44 top Indian companies surveyed, just 20% were involved in discussions about a chief executive succession, and little effort was made at board level to groom top leadership. By comparison, more than 60% of boards at the top-ranked S&P 500 companies in the US discuss chief executive succession at least once a year, and 80% of those companies have emergency succession plans in place.
Indian business houses, after seeing the family battles which are there in the press over the last decade, are very conscious about this. And as I interact with many Indian promoters, I see many of them being acute to actually do succession planning and have clarity as to how things would unfold in the future.
Lack of attention to succession planning is one of the main reasons why family businesses split. And anything one can do to have a process in place to make that succession a planned one, and something where there is a certain amount of accountability as well. And again, I go back to the fact that when one has a board, that's one of the functions the board can very effectively carry out, is help in that process of succession planning.
India clearly has a long way to go before it reaches that level.
Indeed it does. Geeta Piramal joins us on the other side of this break to tell us more. Stay tuned.